struck, he's not ever going to become president, right? Struck, no, he won't. We'll stop it. This is why we're here. We're going to get to the bottom of all this. And we did a lot together when it came to Russian interference in our election. We had hearings, the modus operandi, the toolbox of Russia and other autocracies for undermining democracy throughout the world. Russian interference in the 2016 election, May 2017. Extremist content and Russian disinformation online, October 2017. Protecting our elections, examining shell companies and virtual currencies as avenues for foreign interference, June 2018. Cyber threats are against our national critical infrastructure, August 2018. We have looked at Russia's role in the election. Now we're going to look at the Mueller investigation. And we're going to look hard. And we're going to see if what Mr. Rosenstein said at the start of this hearing comes true. That if somebody corrupts the process, that if somebody lies to the court, they face discipline or maybe criminal prosecution. You described, Mr. Rosenstein, the way it should work. And you gave us an indication of what happens if it doesn't work that way. Well, what will happen? There are millions of Americans pretty upset about this. There are people on our side of the aisle who believe that this investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, was one of the most corrupt, biased, criminal investigations, and we would like to see something done about it. Mr. Durham is looking at the criminality part. What is our job? Our job is to explain to the American people what the Russians were up to, and we did that together. Our job was to give Mr. Mueller the chance to do his work, and he did. Now it's our job to take the Horowitz report that showed 17 violations of the FISA warrant applications against Carter Page and try to explain how that happened and shed light on the fact that it did happen and hope the system will respond. What are we going to be looking at? We're going to be looking at General Flynn's case. We're going to be looking at the fact on January the 4th, 2017, the field office in Washington, D.C. said that there's no longer justification for General Flynn to be considered part of Crossfire Hurricane. We're going to be looking at the Mueller appointment in May of 2017 to see if there was a crime worthy of being investigated. Was there any there? We're going to look backward so that we can move forward. We're going to hold people accountable. If you don't like Trump, fine. But this is not about liking Trump or not liking Trump. This is about us as a nation. We're talking about the nominee for president on the Republican side and his campaign being under continual investigation. We're talking about warrants being issued after the president was sworn in. We're talking about a 2-year investigation that spent $25 to $30 million, turned people's lives upside down to see if it should have ever happened to begin with. We're going to be talking about how it got off the rails, who's responsible for it getting off the rails, and making sure that they're punished appropriately and the system is changed so in the future, no other candidate for president, no other sitting president has to go through this. That's why we're here. It's going to take a while, but we will not be deterred in our effort to get to the bottom of what I think was a very major abuse of power. Senator Feinstein.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you have made abundantly clear, we are here at your request to examine Crossfire Hurricane. That's the FBI investigation into Russian election interference and ties to the Trump campaign. Let me begin with a bit of history. The president has long claimed that the investigation of his campaign was a witch hunt and a hoax, and has demanded that his allies, quote, investigate the investigators, end quote, and other Obama-era officials, including Joe Biden. As support for this claim, the president and his allies point to errors identified by DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz in FISA surveillance on former Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Inspector General Horowitz did, in fact, identify serious errors in the handling of the Carter Page FISA application. A broader FISA audit revealed that many of these problems are unfortunately widespread. This needs to be fixed, and efforts to do so are already underway in the FBI, Congress, and the FISA court itself. But contrary to the president's claims that his campaign was unfairly targeted, Inspector General Horowitz found no evidence of political or anti-Trump bias in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. I've watched this IG carefully now since 2012, that's 8 years, and find him to be independent and believable. And Inspector General Horowitz also confirmed that the opening of the investigation into possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russia was, in fact, justified. As Horowitz's report explains, Australian officials informed the FBI in late July 2016 that Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos that Russia was willing to, quote, assist the campaign, meaning assist the Trump campaign, by anonymously releasing dirt on Clinton in the form of, quote, thousands of emails, end quote. The FBI learned this 1 week after WikiLeaks had released 20,000 emails that Russia had hacked from the computers of the Democratic National Committee. The hacks by Russia and the possibility that the Trump campaign knew of Russia's plans to use the stolen emails to interfere in the 2016 election created a counterintelligence concern that the FBI was obligated to investigate. I think everybody'd recognize that. That counterintelligence investigation eventually became the Mueller investigation, when in May 2017, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein appointed Bob Mueller as special counsel after the president fired FBI Director James Comey. Mueller's investigation revealed, quote, sweeping and systematic, end quote, interference by Russia in the 2016 election. That should cause everyone that's American some deep concern. Significantly, the special counsel investigation determined that the Russian government, quote, perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure the outcome, end quote. That's from the Mueller Report, Volume 1, Page 1. The investigation uncovered more than 120 contacts between the Trump campaign and individuals linked to Russia, revealing that the Trump campaign knew about, welcomed, and, quote, expected it would benefit electorally, end quote, from Russia's interference. And the investigation established that individuals associated with the Trump campaign lied to Congress, the special counsel, and the American people about their contacts with Russia. IG Horowitz confirmed that none of the FISA errors his investigation uncovered call into question, quote, any part of the special counsel's report, end quote. And today's witness, Mr. Rosenstein, has said that the special counsel investigation was, quote, justified, end quote, and, quote, an important investigation, end quote. Unfortunately, the president and his allies have been trying to rewrite the special counsel's findings since the day they were released. But ignoring or excusing what happened in 2016 is really very dangerous. It puts American democracy and national security at risk. FBI Director Wray has confirmed that Russia continues to interfere and that its attempt to influence the 2020 election, quote, a significant counterintelligence threat, end quote. Special Counsel Mueller also warned that Russian interference was happening, quote, as we sit here, end quote. Yet instead of denouncing foreign interference, President Trump has encouraged and even demanded it. In a televised interview following the Mueller report, President Trump said there was, quote, nothing wrong, end quote, with foreign governments offering political dirt on an opponent, and that he would, quote, take it, end quote, likely without informing the FBI. The president publicly called on China to investigate Joe Biden, his rival, in the 2020 election. That's in 10/3/19 remarks of the president. And the president abused presidential authority by withholding critical United States military aid and an Oval Office meeting in an effort to pressure Ukraine's president into announcing an investigation of Joe Biden. Unfortunately, it appears that Senate Republicans now plan to spend the next several months bolstering the president's attack on the Russia investigation and his Democratic nominee, Democrat Joe Biden. Congress should not conduct politically motivated investigations designed to attack or help any presidential candidate, Mr. Chairman, period. This would be true at any time, but even more so now, as our nation confronts the brutal police killing of George Floyd and its aftermath, and remains in the middle of a public health and economic crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Feinstein. Ms. Rosenstein, would you please rise, stand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. You may make your statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Graham, Ranking Member Feinstein, and other members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. When I was sworn in as Deputy Attorney General on April 26, 2017, I became responsible for helping the Attorney General to supervise 115,000 Department of Justice employees and to oversee hundreds of thousands of cases. One of the most important matters pending in the department was an investigation of Russian election influence schemes. Attorney General Sessions had complied with his legal obligation to recuse himself from that investigation 7 weeks before I arrived, and the matter had been under the supervision of Acting Deputy Attorney General Dana Bente as a result. Many federal agents and prosecutors were working on criminal cases that officials considered potentially relevant to Russian election meddling. As a result of events that followed the departure of the FBI director, I was concerned that the public would not have confidence in the investigation and that the acting FBI director was not the right person to lead it. I decided that appointing a special counsel was the best way to complete the investigation appropriately and to promote public confidence in its conclusions. As we now know, the eventual conclusions were that Russians committed crimes seeking to influence the election, and Americans did not conspire with them. A special counsel appointment was consistent with Department of Justice precedent. Attorney General Bill Barr and Attorney General Janet Reno, each in the 1990s, had appointed special counsels in several cases when they concluded that a prosecutor with some degree of independence from the department could best resolve sensitive matters. Recently, Attorney General Barr has assigned U.S. attorneys to take charge of significant investigations. But in May of 2017, there were only 3 confirmed United States attorneys remaining, all Obama administration appointees who had been ordered to resign and had been permitted to hold over for just a few months. Some people confuse special counsels and independent counsels. Independent counsels are appointed by federal judges. The Department of Justice does not supervise them. They often expand their jurisdiction, and they usually investigate for many years. In contrast, Special Counsel Mueller was supervised by the department with jurisdiction that was limited both in scope and in duration. I asked the special counsel to review each criminal allegation the FBI considered relevant to Russian election influence operations and recommend whether to close the matter, to investigate because it might be relevant to Russian election meddling, or to refer the matter to another prosecutor. I also established a supervisory chain of command within the department. Highly qualified department attorneys met regularly with the special counsel team to review recommendations about which matters to investigate and to approve significant steps in consultation with me. Whenever the special counsel proposed charges for which a United States attorney would need approval from the Department of Justice, from a headquarters division, those charges were reviewed, as usual, by the tax division, the national security division, or the criminal division. Well, I understand that today's hearing may focus on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. When I served as Deputy Attorney General, every FBI FISA application was written by agents and attorneys, reviewed by supervisors, sworn under oath by a federal agent, and certified by the FBI director. Before any application was submitted to the court, a senior department official, either the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, or the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, met with National Security Division supervisors to ensure that the application set forth a valid legal and factual basis. Ultimately, each application was submitted to a federal judge who decided whether it set forth probable cause that justified the issuance of a warrant. Every application that I approved appeared to be justified based on the facts it alleged. And the FBI was supposed to be following protocols to ensure that every fact was verified. But investigative reviews published by the Inspector General in December 2019 and March of 2020, those investigative reviews revealed that the FBI was not following the protocols and that significant errors appeared in applications filed in connection with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. The Inspector General concluded, and I quote, that so many basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate hand-picked teams on one of the FBI's most sensitive investigations that FBI officials expected would be subject to close scrutiny, raised significant questions regarding the FBI chain of command's management and supervision of the FISA process. Now, Senators, whenever agents or prosecutors make serious mistakes or engage in misconduct, the Department of Justice needs to take remedial action. And if existing policies fall short, those policies need to be changed. Ensuring the integrity of governmental processes is essential to promoting public confidence in the rule of law. While it is necessary to correct mistakes and to punish wrongdoers, it certainly should not go unsaid today that our law enforcement agencies are filled with men and women who act with integrity. As we watch them deal with extraordinarily difficult circumstances throughout the country this week, we should take this opportunity to let them know that they have our appreciation and our support. In conclusion, I know that the members of this committee share a commitment to the principles of the Department of Justice. I look forward to addressing your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenstein, and I want to echo what you said. Most FBI agents, most law enforcement officers risk their lives and do a job to protect their country, and we appreciate them. But every now and then things get off script, and that's what brings us here today. You signed a warrant application in June of, I think, 2017 to get the Carter Page warrant renewed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked at the Horowitz report?
Yes, I have. I have it with me, Senator.
If you knew then what you know now, would you have signed the warrant application?
No, I would not.
And the reason you wouldn't have is because Mr. Horowitz found that exculpatory information was withheld from the court. Is that correct?
Among other reasons, yes.
Yeah,
Sir.
and somebody actually altered an email.
Correct.
Right, right. So there were 17 violations that Mr. Horowitz found, but I can't stress enough to the country that he found the most egregious of all. The dossier was the only reason the Carter Page warrant was issued to begin with. And in January 2017, the man who provided Steele with all the information told the FBI it was a bunch of garbage and they used it twice more. What kind of country is this? What happens to people who do that? Did you know that? You didn't know that, did you?
No, sir.
Do you think McCabe knew that?
I hope not, Senator. I do not personally know.
Was he in charge of the investigation?
Yes, he was.
Did he ever lie to you?
Mr. McCabe, I don't believe, Senator, that there were any occasions in which I identified that he lied to me.
Okay. Did he ever say anything looking back that is perplexing to you?
That's a very broad question, Senator. I had a lot of
Do you
conversations.
think he was truthful to you?
I believed, Senator, that Mr. McCabe was not fully candid with me. He certainly wasn't forthcoming. In particular, Senator, with regard to Mr. Comey's memoranda of his interviews with the president and with regard to the FBI's suspicions about the president, Mr. McCabe did not reveal those to me for at least a week after he became acting director, despite the fact that we had repeated conversations focusing on this investigation. And for whatever reasons, Mr. McCabe was not forthcoming with me about that. He has subsequently said publicly, in public comments he's made about the investigation, that his team had been leading up to certain important decisions for some time. From my perspective, Senator, they'd been conducting this investigation for, I believe, approximately 9 months.
How much did you rely on Mr. McCabe's statements to sign the warrant? How much did that factor into whether or not you thought the warrant application was accurate?
With regard to the warrant application, Senator, I wouldn't say that I relied on Mr. McCabe's statements. I certainly had an understanding of what Mr. McCabe had told me, but the document stands for itself. It's 100 pages.
Right.
And I relied on what I understood to be in the application.
You did a scope letter, I think, August 2017, after you appointed Mueller. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Memorandum, I suppose. Who prepared that?
Well, Senator, I don't know exactly who prepared it. I know how it came about, if you'd like me to explain.
Yeah, please, very quickly.
I'm not sure how quickly I can do it. But I'd asked Mr. Mueller to look at the whole, to look at all the relevant, potentially relevant matters.
Where did the information in the document come from? Did it come from the Mueller team?
I believe it came from the Mueller team, but it came to me through the team that I had set up to interface with the Mueller team.
Okay, the team that you sent that interfaced with the Mueller team, did they make the conclusions that you need to be looking at Papadopoulos and all these people for colluding with Russia?
I think it's important, Senator, to recognize one of the reasons I was very reluctant to release these documents publicly is because we investigate people who are not necessarily guilty, and so I didn't have any presumption that these folks were guilty of anything.
Did you believe they committed a crime?
I believe that I understood that there was predication to investigate it. I didn't believe.
Where did that come from? Who gave you that predication?
Well, that came from information that came to me from the FBI, initially from.
Was it from Strzok and Page? Are those the people preparing all these documents?
I don't know who was preparing.
Were they in charge? Were they still the investigators for Mueller early on?
My understanding, Senator, is that Ms. Page and Mr. Strzok were working with the Mueller.
What input, if any, did they have into the information contained in the memo?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Who provided the information in the memo?
I'm sorry, which memo are we talking
The
about?
one where you lay out the
scope
scope of the investigation?
That came through discussions between Mr. Mueller's team and.
Well, did anybody on your team recommend you look at Papadopoulos? Where did the idea that George Papadopoulos working with the Russians came from?
These matters, Senator, I believe were already open when I arrived.
Yeah,
in
the
April.
point is that they were open. These are the same people doing Crossfire Hurricane, and they gave you a document to sign, and here's my belief that they prepared the document, that they defined the scope of their own investigation. Is that fair to say? That you were just a conduit for it?
Well, I'm relying on information that's coming up.
Yeah, well, you didn't do an independent investigation yourself, did you?
My job isn't to do the investigation.
No, you didn't do you basically relied on what they gave you. Is that fair to say?
Relied on the information that.
Yeah, just like you did with the warrant.
Correct.
Okay, so the same people that gave you the warrant application also gave you the scope investigation for Mueller. So that's why we're here, to find out how much we can trust these people. Now, to appoint a special counsel, there's got to be evidence, criminal investigation of a person or matter is warranted. What was the crime that you were looking at?
So I think, Senator, it's important to understand, first of all, that's what's required under the regulation.
Right.
It's actually not required to appoint a special counsel. That could be
Okay.
a
Well,
crime.
was there a crime being looked at or
In this
not?
particular case, yes.
What was the crime?
The original crime, underlying crime, was the Russian influence operation.
Okay, can you
Hacking.
tell us what evidence existed that General Flynn was colluding with the Russians in May of 2017?
I don't, the evidence against General Flynn, first of all, Senator.
What evidence existed that General Flynn was colluding with the Russians in 2017, May of 2017?
I can't comment about that case, Senator, beyond what's in.
Did you know that in January the 4th, 2017, the FBI field office said, we recommend that General Flynn be removed from Crossfire Hurricane?
No, I did not.
Okay. Would that have mattered if you had known that?